everyone, the next couple of reviews I'll be doing on this channel will be a little bit different to my normal format. When I was going through my corset collection this year, I realized that I've been holding on to a few corsets for several years now, and I never reviewed them or even really wore them that much on this channel. These corsets were all samples, so they were made for a model before, such as this one, or the corset was made for a different client who never finished payment, so after a few years the corseteer just put that corset in a sample sale. So I kept sort of waiting and trying them on at different times to see if there was ever a point that the corsets would be comfortable and would fit me in a flattering way. And the truth is, these corsets were not made for my body, and even if I were a different weight or something, it's not made to fit my bone structure either. So I figured the longer I wait to do these reviews, the more obsolete they become, because I don't know if the corset maker has changed their format or their styles or even their construction. So I apologize that I won't be showing these corsets modeled on my body, but I will be putting them on a pillow or on my wasp waist mannequin here, Sophie, so that you can have a general idea of the shape that some of these corset makers can accomplish with their work. But the truth is, you know, these makers, they do custom work, and if you order a corset from them, it will be made custom to your body. So the way that an old sample corset would fit on my body is not necessarily going to represent the way that a custom corset would fit on your body in the first place. So with all that said, I'm going to go ahead with this review, and this is a sample Ganymede corset made by Jupiter Moon 3. Now this corset is several years old, so I'm not sure if the construction is up to date to how she makes her corsets now. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please get in touch with Jupiter Moon 3 directly. So here's the front, the side, back, and the other side. So if you want to see some pictures of this exact corset modeled on some real people, I will put some links in the description below to Jupiter Moon 3's website, which specifically features this style, and I will also put some links to her Facebook page of a different model in this same corset. So like I said before, the measurements of this particular corset are a little bit moot because if you ordered this corset, it would be made to your body. But just for completion's sake, the center front here is 14.5 inches. Along the princess seam from under the breast to the top of the lap is 10.5 inches. Along the side seam here is 9.5 inches. And in the very back here, it is 14 inches long. Now for the circumferential measurements, this corset is a size 20 in the waist. The rib cage is about 26 inches, and along the iliac crest here, right where measured right along this highest part where the hip is cut, that is 30 inches. So if I were to wear this corset, I could wear it with a fairly even gap in the back, but it would have about 4 inches gap in the back. So here is the Jupiter Moon 3 Ganymede corset laid flat, and for the materials of this, if you consider interfacing to be a layer, then it's 3 layers. If you don't consider interfacing to be a true layer, then it's technically 2 layers. So the fashion fabric is this off-white twill, and actually this corset has been tea stained, which is why it has that sort of antique yellowed color to it. The twill has been fused to a very thick interfacing, and then on the inside here you can see it's very lightweight, thin cotton lining here. I'm just showing you a close-up of the embellishment here, so you can see that there's a little bit of lace at the very top, center front panels here, and there's also lace with ribbon running through it in these bottom panels here, the first half of the corset anyways. So I think it's really neat how these first 2 boning channels, they break up the lace going over it, almost as if they are external boning channels, but they're not sewn like traditional external boning channels because you can't see the seams on either side of it. So it's almost as if during the construction process it was put on like a binding. And here you can also see the flossing. So there are a total of 8 places that this corset is flossed, 4 on each side, just made from this natural sort of hemp twine. And turning this corset on its side, it does not like to lie flat, and I will get into the reason why later. But this corset has technically a 5-panel pattern, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is another, technically another panel right there, but it's just that very back lacing panel right there. And so for the actual construction of this, obviously the twill was fused to the interfacing, and the panels were stitched together. And the way that they were stitched together is actually kind of neat because it looks like there is binding on each of these boning channels in the front here. These ones simply look to be lock stitched together, and then the floating lining was all stitched together, those panels, and attached to the corset at the very front panel here and the center back panel. And I hope this is coming out on camera, but I'm holding a light behind the corset here, and it doesn't seem to look like there is a waist tape in this corset. I don't feel a waist tape in here either. So when I first got this corset in the mail and I noticed that it didn't have a waist tape, I did inquire about it. I basically asked whether this particular corset didn't have a waist tape just because it was a sample to be photographed and that's it, or whether by default she tends not to use waist tapes in even her commissioned corsets. And she mentioned that she tends not to use waist tapes even in her commission because in all the years that she's been making corsets, and she says that she's made over 1,000 corsets, she's never had a problem with the corset stretching at the waistline or tearing at the seams or anything, so she tends to find the waist tape superfluous. However, she says that if you want a waist tape added, if you have a custom commission from her, then she can add one for you. It would just require a markup in price. And here's a close-up of the binding made from bias strips of matching twill here, so it matches the rest of the corset. And it seems that this entire corset had been tea stained when it was completed, so the binding perfectly matches the rest of the fashion fabric here. So it's machine stitched on the outside here, and you can see that on the outside it was stitched in the ditch right there, so there's no top stitch. And then finished with a little bit of a top stitch on the inside here. The Modesty panel in this corset is about 4.5 inches wide, so I would say about 3 inches of usable space when you consider that some of the Modesty panel is taken up by this grommet and boning area here in the center back. So it's unstiffened and made from matching tea-stained twill here and the same lightweight cotton liner there. It's attached to one side with a row of stitching, so if you don't like Modesty panels, you can simply remove it by picking out that row of stitching right there. There's also a Modesty placket, a really teeny tiny unstiffened one that is basically just an extension of this knob side of the busk. So the busk was recessed and the placket itself is about 1/4 inch wide, and you can see how the lace actually just extends over it. The busk in this corset is 13 inches long. It is a standard flexible busk, so 1/2 inch on each side, and it has 6 loops and pins all equidistantly spaced. Now the busk is fairly flexible, however the bones that are running alongside this busk here, these are flat steel bones that have been pre-shaped. I'll get to that later, but that adds a little bit more stability to the front area here so it doesn't bow out too much. So like I had said earlier, trying to get this corset to lie flat on its side is not going to happen. So this corset has a total of 12 bones, 6 bones on each side, not including the busk. So you can see that my magnet attracts all of them here. And so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all 1/4 inch wide flat steel bones actually. And by the back here, there's another 2 1/4 inch wide flat steel bones sandwiching the grommets. And the reason why I think these are all flat steel bones is that they're a little bit more rigid than spirals would normally be, and they're also pre-bent. So this first one here, this one is just flat, the one that is closest to the busk. The second one, it curves inward at the waist a little bit, but then interestingly it curves outward at this lower tummy area so that it almost mimics the shape that a spoon busk would make. So if you have any problem with lower tummy pooch, then this bone would actually probably help to keep your lower tummy in and prevent it from kind of falling out the bottom of the corset. And then obviously this dramatic bone carves out the shape of the side seam. So it is dramatically bent inwards to pull in the waist at the sides, at your obliques, and then it pops outward again so that it doesn't put pressure on your hip bone. And then this backbone here, it curves inward, I guess, to follow a bit of your lumbar area, and then out again, this would be going over the bum area. Now these bones in the back by the grommets here, these are not pre-bent, although I'm sure you could bend it
if you really needed to, but these are actually quite flexible here. So you would be able to tie up the corset and have it flex with your backbone, especially with the encouragement of these adjacent bones there. And here's a close-up of the grommets. There are a total of 28 of them, 14 on each side. They are size 00 with a medium flange around them. I recognize these as being, once again, very popular grommets used by American corset makers. They all seem to be holding in fairly well. And here you can see the underside of the grommet, so nice big washers. I don't see any fraying or damage of the fabric around these grommets. They're holding in fairly well. These grommets are a little bit more than an inch apart, except for at the waistline where they are a little bit closer together for ease of cinching. Now, some of these grommets, they do have some splits in them, and they catch a little bit on the ribbon laces here. These laces are 3/8 of an inch wide, cream, double-faced satin ribbon. And they have no stretch to them, and they seem to hold the bow pretty well. They are a little bit slippery when they're gliding through the laces, except when they catch on the few splits here. But if I were to switch out this ribbon lacing and use some densely woven flat nylon lacing, like shoelace style laces instead, then they may not actually catch on the splits quite as much.
If you wanted a corset with this exact same style, then the price for the base corset, the Ganymede style, is $230. If you wanted a front busk here in the front instead of a closed front, that would be a $40 markup. The Modesty panel in the back here is another $15 markup. There is hemp flossing in, I believe, 8 different places, which works out to $32 markup. And then the lace here is another $20 markup. So when you look at this exact style on the website, it's quoted to actually be $322. But when you look at the list of features and add-ons, it does not include the Modesty panel in the back like this sample has. So if you want the Modesty panel in the back, it would actually come up to $337. And this concludes my review of the Ganymede Jupiter Moon 3 corset sample. Once again, I apologize for getting this out super late, but I hope you still found this video still informative. If you have any comments or questions, or if you own a more modern Jupiter Moon 3 corset and you can tell me if there's any differences between the construction of yours versus this old sample I have, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will see you all in a few days for the next video. Bye.